today we're going to be looking at our first proper manoeuvre. So at the end of last lesson I started to teach you how to make the car go backwards in a straight line. And if you remember the skills I was looking for, it was that really good tight clutch control. And I think you got the hang of that. So basically I was really impressed with the fact you could understand making it move slower is just dipping the clutch a fraction, but not all the way, and to make it move, raise it just above the biting point. So I was really impressed with those skills there. We also looked at where to look when we go backwards. So in other words, instead of our usual path to road, because we're going forwards, we're going to start looking from the road to the path and looking behind us, because that's the direction the car's going. So those are the new skills we learnt last lesson. And to keep the car on track, basically we looked at the accuracy, how we could use the mirrors on the side of the car, how we could get a reference point in the back window, that's a windscreen wiper part, that it looked like it lined up against the curb. All those were skills that we learnt. But today we're now going to put it into a real life manoeuvre. And although this is not actually part of the test anymore, it still encourages you to actually do the 3 skills I want you to do. So let's look at why we do this in the real world. Imagine you've entered a cul-de-sac. We can't go any further, so we've got to turn the car around and face the opposite direction. But if the road signs are telling us not to do things like that, then we certainly shouldn't try. Like one-way streets or no U-turns, don't try and do this manoeuvre. And if you do remember from last lesson, the view out the back window is not great, because these modern cars have got these big thick pillars. So if we see a child or somebody else around the car, we might have to get out and warn them, or find somewhere else if we have to actually do the manoeuvre. Now these bottom 2 pictures are quite important. That you may not have noticed it, but roads are designed with a hump on it, and that's called a camber. And all it's for is for the rain to drain off to the edges rather than stay in the middle of the road and potentially cause aquaplaning. Now when we get to do this manoeuvre, we're going to have to turn the car to go from one side of the road to the other, so you'll find that the car will, to start with, feel like it's going up a hill. And eventually, when you come towards the curb, you'll feel like it may roll down the hill, depending on how big that camber is. So again, your clutch control that we practiced last lesson, it's crucial that we get that tight clutch control. Now, the other thing that we might deal with today is other vehicles. So we start this manoeuvre, and as we go across the road towards the other side, a vehicle turns up. Now, generally speaking, on all the manoeuvres I'm going to teach you, I'd like you to stop the car straight away. Again, we're in control of that situation. They hit us, it can't be our fault. But on this one, if we do that, we're generally going to find that we block the whole road off. So that vehicle has to stop. And he might not want to. So the best thing we can do on the turn in the road is actually to get from one side of the curb to the other. So as you can probably see in the picture, to go from A to B and get to that curb. And once we get there, then we've left a gap for that car to drive through. And if he wants to, that's what he'll do. But he still may wait and actually let us carry on with our manoeuvre. And if that's the case, the only way we're going to find out is if we turn our head, a bit like crossroads, and look at each other. So we get an idea of what that vehicle's doing. Now, as for the skill of doing this manoeuvre, it's really, really simple. Everything starts with the POM that we've learnt, so that prepare your feet, do the observations and make the car move. All those skills are going to go on. And once we're happy that the car is actually safe to move, we're going to make it move at the old man walking pace. And once we get going, the only thing you've got to change from last lesson is now we need to turn the wheel as much as possible. And when we turn it, as far as possible is called full lock. Now our hands actually need to be moving at a faster rate than our car. So although the car's going to move slow, I want you to have a skill called brisk steering. And it just means quick hands, maximise your turn, get yourself at that full lock as quick as you can. And so now, if you're doing that, your angle that you're coming at will be then greater, and therefore it should allow you to make this manoeuvre more easily than other ways of doing it. So you can see here, we're going across the road, and so we're getting towards the curb, and what we need to do is find a reference point so the front of the car doesn't bang into the curb. And the one I want you to use is one that you already know, because when you come to the end of the road, if you remember, you look under the mirror. What you'll see on this one is the curb instead of the white line under the mirror. So when that happens, there's a little bit of multitasking to be done. So what I'd like you to do is, if you can, start straining the wheel back up so it's square to the car. If you can also at the same time dip that clutch down and gently apply pressure to the brake, you'll then stop before you hit anything. Now on this car, the handbrake comes on automatically. But in the real world, what you'll decide, if the camber's bad, we might need the handbrake. If it's not so bad, you might not. So we'll make that decision based on what we see. But once you have got the car secure, put the car into reverse and get ready for the next POM routine. but this time we're reversing. So just like last lesson, we look from right round to the back window to the left, and we're looking there as the car starts to move. Again, when you get moving, steer towards me, so it's in other words to the left, and get that wheel briskly done to full lock again. Hopefully then the car will come from an angle round to at least straight, so I call it the 12 o'clock position, and that's when I want to start looking on your side of the car, because if you'll notice on the picture, the actual driver's side is the one that would hit the curb, not the passenger side. So we need a new reference point to work out where that is. And if you look over your right shoulder towards the passenger door, you'll see the window and that bar in the splitting the two pieces of glass. But if you look in the bottom right hand corner, that's the point where you'll see the curb coming. So that's your reference point that hopefully will work for you. If it doesn't, we'll find a new one, but hopefully that's your spot. And exactly that point where it's starting to get close to it, the same multitasking again. Straighten your wheel up, dip the clutch, gently apply pressure to the brake so we stop before we hit something. Hopefully then the car's at an angle that gives us a nice easy life to get away. So all we've got to do is the POM routine, hopefully with one last go, get the car ready, check it's safe from left to right, and as long as it is, complete the amount of steering you need to do to get the car back in its normal driving position. Now, if for whatever reason it's not working today and you can't make it in 3, we may have to repeat parts B to C and C to D, so we might have to do it in 5. And if that's the case, don't worry about it, I'll keep guiding you through until you get used to it. But hopefully, you'll have a nice easy life. So, are you ready to have a go?